Hi everybody, my name is Kevin Furman, and this video is some technique things for snare drum, and well, one or two in particular, and it's from a series of videos that I'm putting together that go with some material I call Percussion Olympics. So if you're looking for materials to help your students, if you're a band director or orchestra director and you need your percussionists to have a track to move from, kind of beginning-ish to intermediate level, kind of junior high, high school level, mostly geared towards high school, but can be junior high depending on the situation. This is what these videos are all about that. Now today, we're going to talk about downstrokes and upstrokes. This isn't new information. I'm not trying to, to say that I've discovered something brand new or anything like that. But I am going to shed some light on a couple things about it that I've noticed over the years that I've been teaching, and that seem to help students quite a bit. So here's what well, first I'm going to go over technique really quick. I do cover this extensively in my 10 Steps to Unbelievable Rolls videos. So if you look at the intro video of that series, I go over technique of how to hold the stick and why to hold the stick a certain way. Again, it's not a definitive thing. It's just, certainly a general approach that helps people with rolls and more technical things. And so this kind of falls in line with that, in that what we're going to talk about is a technical thing today, but it is less involved than, say, rolls. So anyway, sort of the second step. I generally start with kind of legato stroke or that kind of playing, and then I'll move to downstrokes and upstrokes. Okay, so we're going to focus on downstrokes and upstrokes today. So downstrokes and upstrokes, very simple. A downstroke, you want to execute with all your fingers still on the stick. So you never, at this point, in this point of the game, you never want to open up your fingers when you bring the stick up in an up position. So this would be up, this would be down, obviously. So this is not this kind of situation where you're using your fingers to go up and down. That's a totally different technique approach that I don't think is helpful for what I'm trying to accomplish for downstrokes and upstrokes. It's not wrong, it's not a bad thing to learn, it's just not useful in this context. So it's really good, what I've found is to separate the technical side of things and just focus on one aspect of technique, kind of master that if you will, or get a good handle on it, and then move on, add that to something else, and then add another piece of technique, and add another piece, and then you've got kind of these tools in your toolbox to really be able to play. Okay, down to what it actually is. All right, so downstrokes. Downstrokes literally are the sticks going down, but there's a couple things about it. One, when the stick is in the up position, let's say you're going to play an accented note, things like this, right? So those accented notes, most of those are downstrokes. So to do a downstroke that's helpful in almost all situations is the stick will, think of the stick as being starting in the up position, say forte, kind of that level. Now, if you notice, I'm not using my arms, so I'm not going to do this. One thing that people get really confused about is accents are not hit harder, so it's not like you hit harder. The best way to start with accents, and there are times to hit harder, I'm not saying that's bad, I'm just saying right now to learn a good technique, general thing to start and get people flowing and moving, it's better to think of accents as just the stick is going higher. So if you keep the unaccented notes quite low and the accented notes rather high to begin, it seems to help separate in people's brains the difference between the technique of controlling the stick at different volumes. Anyway, so downstrokes are, if you start in an upward position, say forte, okay, and the stick will go down, hit the drum, you do not press on the drum, you hit it, and then you basically just kind of freeze your wrist in position. Now it doesn't mean squeeze your wrist, two entirely different things. So you don't push it down and then squeeze really hard. That tenses up your muscles. Anytime you're tense, that's going to slow you down and not develop the right kind of muscle control that you want. So downstrokes are really down, and as long as you have your fingers on the stick, and this is why I mentioned it, all you have to do is just stop the motion with your wrist. Okay, so it's all in the wrist, as everyone says, right? So it's all there. And so what I like to practice is just going down with each hand in succession. So think of it as like 3, 4, 1, 2. And try to get the stick to, end up about, say, an inch, couple centimeters above the drum or pad. I'm going to use a pad today just so I can talk over it. But it doesn't matter either way. In fact, it's really good to do on a pad just so it's not bothering everybody with just these really simple things I'm going to show you. But anyway, so downstrokes are literally very simple. They just go down. Again, you do not press, so it is not that. That is not what we're doing. So we're hitting the drum and not letting it bounce up. What letting it bounce up would look kind of like this. And that's what I see a lot of people, they don't have a lot of control, so they end up playing accents kind of. So in their head, they hear a big difference because they're hitting harder or whatever. But if you actually listen to that, it doesn't, you can't tell. It's not obvious enough. So you need to make your accents super obvious when you're playing to make them sound as cool as possible. So you got to get those unaccented notes down very low comparatively to your accented notes. Okay, so side note, yes, not all accents are this high, but it's a really good place to start to train your muscles. So I'll just say that up front. And then later, as you progress and as you get better with things, yes, there are nuances, there are different heights of accents, that sort of thing. That's another conversation, not for today. Okay, so downstrokes, right? So I tend to just focus on, okay, we go 3, 4, down, down, right? And then reset, down, down, reset, 3, 4, down, down, reset. And it's not really the speed of how quickly your right and left go. It could be 3, 4, down, down. It's more the motion that you go down with is quick, but between your hands doesn't have to be fast. So it doesn't have to be like that. I'm not talking about that kind of speed. It's more the speed of just, use gravity and push the stick down and then freeze your hand in that downward position. So it's a good idea just to practice that. And as simple as that is, and this shouldn't be difficult for too many people, unless you're very, very beginning, you might have a little trouble controlling because you're just not used to not letting the stick wobble around or whatever. But most people have got a general control, especially in junior high school level. They've played enough that they can do that fairly easily. Some people do get in the habit of pressing. Again, check your technique. Some things that happen are people will start to use their arm, like they'll think of it as this as opposed to that. So again, watch your wrists. Also opening fingers. And the other one would be kind of pressing. Like they'll point their finger and kind of press. I see that somewhat often. They'll start here and all of a sudden as it goes down, they'll kind of do that. So be careful that you're not pressing at all. It's not a pressure kind of thing. It's just you go down and freeze, down and freeze. Okay, so those are downstrokes. Most accents are downstrokes, not all, and I'm not going to talk about that right now. That's another video, but just know most accents are, and you can figure out, and again in a later series when they aren't and all that stuff. But I want to get to the upstroke part. Now, the upstroke part is the one where people don't practice enough. I think they assume the upstroke is part of a downstroke. And what I've found is if you separate those in your brain and practice them separately, you try to think of them as separate motions, it trains your hands and brain to think of accents in a way that's helpful for speed, for dynamic control, and other technical things like flams and other stuff. So it's really helpful to think of an upstroke as separate from a downstroke. Now, they will look connected as you go faster, but in the beginning, it is very helpful to do an upstroke. Now, an upstroke is you start in the down position, obviously, and the stick is going to go up, back to that kind of forte level at this point. So again, it's sort of the opposite motion, shockingly, of the downstroke. So same sort of thing with your hands. Again, make sure your fingers are on the stick. You're going to use your wrist, not your arm. So you're not lifting with your elbow or your arm or your shoulder or any of that stuff. It's just all in your wrist. Okay, so it's all here. So one thing that I'm not doing now because I'm trying to talk to you is I actually watch my hand when I'm playing these things. I make sure that I'm not squeezing. I make sure my fingers are staying on. Make sure I'm just using my wrist. I'm not getting any arm or elbow motion or minimal. It'll get a little, but minimal, right? So I'm watching that. I'm not really watching my sticks much unless I'm, really unsure about where the stick is going to hit, which I'm not. But you should be okay if you have a big pad like this or a big shot area to shoot it for, like your drum. Hitting it's not that big of a deal. So I don't really watch my stick. I watch my wrist and my fingers. That's where all the action is. Anyway, upstrokes. Now, upstrokes go the opposite. They go up instead of down. Shocking, again. So what I'll do is same sort of thing. 3, 4, up, up. And again, I'm thinking as a very fast motion up. So I want to go quickly up and freeze it in that forte or up position. So I'm going from low to high as fast as I can. Again, without squeezing or without getting all tense. I'm just going up quick and freezing my hand, stopping my hand, however you want to think of it, or stopping my wrist in that position. Okay? Now, a couple things about that. One is I actually am getting a note. Now, just real quick so you can hear it. All right, so I am playing a note, but I am not, capital N-O-T, hitting and then going up. So I'm not trying to hit and then going up. That's two different things. We've now done another motion and then an upstroke. So upstrokes are, by their nature, just up. And the more you conceptually think of them as just up, even though technically, yes, the tip of the stick droops down, taps the drum, and then you go up. It's more like I think of grabbing the note. I'm kind of grabbing it as I go up. Like that. That's one concept of it. Right? So mentally, what's really going on is I think of the tip of the stick getting very, very heavy for a microsecond. It drops on its own, and I'm just picking it up. So that's how that works. Now, I'm going to use this side so you can hear it a little better. So you can hear that I'm grabbing that note. Again, I'm not trying to hit and then go up. That's the main thing that people get confused about at first. It's just up and up. If you happen to go up and miss, don't get a note every once in a while, not every time, but every once in a while, it's okay. Not a huge deal. You're working more on the motion of up quick and freeze. That's the up stroke. That's the actual stroke. Now, you want to get a note because almost always, okay, 90% of the time, you will play a note going for an accent. Not always, but you will. 90 might be a little high, but somewhere in there, high percentage, right? Most of the time you're going to play a note to get to that upward position to play an accent. Okay, so that's one thing to watch for is you want to play there. Another concept about the upstroke that I guess I want to throw in here, I used to say a lot, and I like the analogy. It may work for some of you, it may not, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. That is, if this were a hot stove, right, the motion is not... you wouldn't do this with a hot stove. Ow! That's not really how we experience that that event, right? So it's more like, ow, you pull away really fast. You touched it and then you pull away. So that's the motion of an upstroke. It's very similar. Now, obviously the drum is not hot, and obviously we're not burning ourselves and all that, but it's a quick motion. I guess maybe that's the best part of that analogy is it's very quick, and then you freeze in that position. Now, here's where these two ideas combine. I know you're already ahead of me, but I'm going to go through this anyway. And that is you put them together in an exercise where you just do down, down, up, up. Okay? And that's it. There's no real complication to it. But what you're working on is the motion, not the actual playing. So kind of ignore what you're playing. Think more about, okay, I'm going down and down. All right? So that's the first part. And then you go up and then up. That's the second part. And you repeat. Because you're now back to that up position, you can just repeat it. So what I tend to do is have people play this at, think eighth notes. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So things to watch for are freezing in each position. So freeze, 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 freeze. Right? So pretty simple in that sense. Also, big note here. That is also practice starting with your weaker hand. I'm right-handed, which is this one. Looks on the left side for you. But my left hand is my weaker hand. So what I would do is practice starting with my left hand at least as many times as my right. And ideally, you do it twice as many times left-handed than you would right-handed. Because you want to get to a point where doing this motion in this order doesn't freak out your brain. I've seen plenty of people that think, oh yeah, left hand, no big deal, and then it's just really awkward. So just, work at weak hand leading also. So what I tell people, and what I have tracks for, if you're interested, let me know. I can get you, some tracks to play along with. To start at 80 and do each hand for a minute is ideal. So what I would say is do your weak hand in the morning, and then your strong hand at night, or left hand and the right hand, whatever. And then the next day, you go up by 2 clicks on the metronome. So if you start at 80, which I recommend, then next day go at 82. Do a minute with your left hand, a minute with your right hand. Then 84, a minute with your left hand, a minute with your right hand, etc., etc. The tracks themselves I have at all tempos from 80 by 2s all the way to 200. Yes, 200. But you're thinking eighth notes, okay? So don't freak out, but start at 80 and just do every 2 counts. The idea is to repeatedly do this. It's not can you play 200, it's can you play 80 and then 82 and do it really, really well. When you're focused on the right things, then what happens is as you do get faster, you still want to be thinking about the motion. Down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, right? So you want to be thinking about that motion, but you still want to be thinking about the freezing your hand part. This is, by the way, this is a very technical approach to this. This is not a musical approach whatsoever to this whole thing. This is training. It's like weight training for people that are in sports. You do strength training or speed training, that kind of thing. It's that. It has nothing to do with your sport. It has to do with building muscle. And so this is a muscle training exercise. Anyway, so as you go faster, what you'll see is it'll begin to look like I'm not freezing anymore, but as I go faster, I keep trying to focus on that. The downs are kind of easy to see. The ups, it's a little bit harder to tell that I'm focusing on it, but I am trying to think of it as down, down, up, down, you know, down, up, down, up, right? Okay, that's faster than 200, but you get the point. So as you get faster, they do appear to be connected, like one motion. And that's how most people practice them from the beginning. They think of a downstroke as starting here and going. To them, they think of that as a downstroke. That's actually up and then down. The more you separate them and think of them as separate motions, the more control you gain over them. And therefore, you can use them more easily. And then, especially if you start with your weak hand a lot of times, your weak hand accents become equally strong to your strong hand accents, which is ideal, and that's what you want. So that's it in a nutshell. Again, if you want some resources, print it out, or you want some tracks, get a hold of me. You know, you can get a hold of me through the video here. Obviously, a link in the description, all that sort of thing. So anyway, there's downstrokes and upstrokes. If you have any questions, obviously let me know. Thanks for watching, and there's further videos coming, and you know you can check out all the other things I got going on. Again, the technique, how to hold the sticks, is in the intro video of 10 Steps to Unbelievable Rolls, so go check that one out too. All right, thanks a lot. We'll see you around.